righty, please stand for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Learned that in the first grade and been saying it ever since. Welcome, everybody. Last day of summer and the Minnehaha County Commission meeting. Reminder to silence your cell phones, avoid embarrassment. If you need a listening device, ask Carol, and the public records documents are all in the end by Commissioner Heiberger, and they are also available at any time in the county auditor's office. I'm going to look for a call this to order and look for a motion to approve our routine business, approve our agenda, I'm sorry.
Motion to approve.
Heiberger, second by Bender. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Meeting minutes from commission meeting for September 7th, 2021.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And then consider a motion to correct previously approved commission meeting minutes for July 27th, 2021.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Comments? Nope. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Bills to be paid, $5,069,657.24.
Second.
Comments?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
the biggest chunk of this, again, is our motor vehicle stuff that we remit to the state. I think it's $4.2 million. Other than that, our bills were normal.
Thank you, Commissioner. So we have a motion by Bars, second by Heiberger. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We have reports from the Register of Deeds Statement of Revenue for August 21, the Sheriff's Report for August of 2021, the Minnehaha County Regional Detention Center Report for July of 2021, Auditor's Financial Reports for August of 2021, and then the Highway Department Monthly Construction Update. And I've been through most of those. The Auditor's Financial Reports, Carol, I called you yesterday about, Ben, quick question. There was kind of it seemed like a jump in the general fund expenses.
Oh, expense.
The last page of that report.
Right.
We
So
could
this is what we discussed last month as well. The expenses are just elevated because of the sheriff's office, their increase in the medical cost. They expect those to even out as the year goes on, and they believe they'll come out even at the end of the year. But we've been continuing to monitor it, but we did mention it.
Oh,
about a
those
month
from
ago.
the jail medical?
Yes.
Ah, that's right. Okay, so, because, yeah, it's up as a percentage and as a dollar amount, pretty
Yeah.
substantial, so, okay. I remember that conversation from previous commission meetings. Thank you for
Yep.
refreshing me. Thank you. Okay. Personnel actions. Consider a motion to approve routine personnel.
Make a motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Now we are looking for special personnel action to approve 2 temporary deputy sheriff positions over the authorized budget to assist in coverage during military leave deployments beginning in 2021 through 2022. Good morning, Mr. Gromer.
Good morning, not Kerry Deaver. Jeff Gromer, Chief Deputy with the Sheriff's Office. I'll just do this one because I'm the one obviously making the request. We are asking the commission to approve us to overhire for the Sheriff's Office patrol deputy positions by 2 deputy sheriffs over our what currently budgeted allotment. What reason for the request is we have 2 officers that are going to be deployed for military service. I believe it was 440 days is what was listed on their deployment paperwork. They start in the middle of October. What we'd like to do is hire 2 officers to fill those vacant roles for the year while these individuals are deployed. Over the course of that year, as we're looking ahead, we're projecting to have 2 other deputy sheriffs that are likely to leave employment with the sheriff's office, which at that time then will return back to our budgeted allotment. So we should be able to accomplish getting these 2 new individuals hired, trained, and on the road without experiencing any budget impact on it. With the 2 individuals that are deployed, obviously, the county will not be paying their salary while they're gone, so we'll bring these 2 new individuals in and get them trained and use those salary dollars for that purpose.
Questions for Mr. Gromer? Commissioner Bender?
I'd just say that I think it makes a lot of sense. You know, when you've got any person, any entity trying to run a business, if you've got 2 key people that are going to be gone, and you know through your historical data that you're likely to see a turnover during that time period, I think this is very, it would be a wise move, and I'd be fully supportive of it.
And it is law enforcement, so fully supportive.
Thank you.
So we have
I'd
a
make a
motion and
motion
a
to
second.
approve.
Second.
Okay, motion by Bender, second by Barth. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Mr. Gromer. Applications for abatement. We have Vladimir Prokolevich, RDID 79379, 2020 property taxes, $1,370.12. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Commissioners. Chris Lilly, Equalization. On this one here, we're recommending denial. The reason for their abatement request is a 2-part, one being owner-occupied, that we never received an application for, and that's their main purpose of that. On top of that, there is a tax flag for outstanding taxes, and so we are prohibited from recommending abatement approval whenever there's tax certificates. So we are recommending denial on this one.
Motion
Questions?
to approve denial?
Second.
Comments?
Okay.
Commissioner?
So has this first applicant been here before?
I don't
Seems
know.
like a familiar name.
It does
but-
seem familiar to me as well, but I don't know that they have.
Thank you.
So, if I could, Chris, the reason for the denial is because they didn't have the form in, they had no proof that they submitted it.
Correct. Yeah, it's one of those
We have
ones
no
that kind of falls
recourse.
through the cracks where when they buy the lot first, there's a deed transfer on that, and then when they build their own home, there is no transfer to flag us, to do anything. It's really up to the homeowner to make application, and then a couple of years down the road, they discover that and now they want an abatement. We do have them owner occupied moving forward, but we can't go in the rear. And then compound that with tax certificate, it's violation. We cannot recommend abatements when there's outstanding taxes.
If I remember correctly, state statute does not permit us to
Correct.
do that. Okay. All righty, so we have a motion for denial and a second. Roll call vote.
Barth. Bender.
Aye.
Hiberger.
Aye.
Karski.
Aye. Motion carries. 6B, Enna Alfaro Orozco, RDID 74108. I'll let you say these from now on, Chris. 2020 property taxes in the amount of $74.54.
Yeah, this one here is a mobile home that was destroyed on site. We are also recommending denial on this one, and again, for the same reasons as the previous taxes are uncollectible at the sheriff's office right now, so there is a tax certificate. I don't know that we're ever going to be able to collect them. The mobile home is gone, but we can't recommend this for approval.
So they owe 2 years' taxes,
Correct.
basically. Okay. Commissioner Iberger.
If they came in and paid the delinquent taxes, they could come back and reapply for this abatement, and so they would have half the taxes. So I would recommend that they come in and pay the old
Yep,
taxes.
and they have been notified, and they're well aware of that.
Yep.
And we've sat on this one for quite some time to make sure they had ample time, and we finally got to a point where we said, we can't hold on to paperwork forever. We've got to move forward, so.
They can always come back, so I
Yep.
would make a motion to deny.
I'll second that motion.
Call the roll.
Bender.
Aye.
Hiberger. Aye. Barth. Aye. Karski.
Aye. Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I just point out that this is another missing mobile home.
Yep.
And they ought to change it and be more like automobile registration.
6C1, Veteran Exemption, PT 10440, RDID 68689, 2019 property taxes, $1,572.32.
This one we are recommending for approval. Again, is with the disabled vets, once they get full and permanent disability through the VA, they can make application to our office, and we go back to the retroactive date of when they receive that. 'Cause sometimes the VA comes after, and they post-date that or predate that. I don't know what the word is, predate it. So we are recommending approval on this one. Also, if you want to jump into C2, it's the same parcel, but it's for 2020. Pay 21 in the amount of $2,311.78. And we're also recommending approval on that, same reasons. Yep.
Same property for C1 and C2, but we're going to take them separately, so look for a motion on C1.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Hiberger. Barth.
Aye.
Bender. Karski.
Aye. And then C2?
So moved.
Second?
Go ahead.
Hiberger.
Aye.
Barth. Bender. Karski.
Aye. Both motions carry unanimously. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much, Chris. Notices and requests, there are none. Planning and zoning notices, there are none. And there are no petitions for compromise of lien. It is the opportunity now for public comment. Is anybody here or in the hallway that would like to address the commission on a non-agenda item? Moving on. Jeff, I thought you were going to jump up and say something, the way you look there. No? Okay. Regular business, a briefing on a request from the city of Sioux Falls for approval to move forward on a proposal to extend some new protection from the city's updated floodplain ordinance into the joint jurisdiction area for Minnehaha County and Sioux Falls. Mr. Schmidt.
Planning Commission, Albert Schmidt, City of Sioux Falls Planning Development Services. Appreciate you letting me come and take up some of your time this morning. I'll try to be fairly brief. Just looking for some direction one way or another from this group. So as you may be aware, City of Sioux Falls adopted new regulations. We'll get into that timeline a little bit here in the next slide. But our goal ultimately is to look at this and go, how do we help protect property owners and the people who live in these areas from potential flooding and those issues. So with that in mind, we started a year-long process. So on the next slide here, we have our timeline of outreach that we did for the City of Sioux Falls ordinance. So you can kind of see basically a year-long process of different outreaches, different groups, talking about how this was influenced. Now, in all fairness, we only did this and reached out to places inside the City of Sioux Falls. So just to be real open, real fair with you guys, that's where we started at. The main reason why do we do this now, what was the biggest change that we saw in here? On the next slide here, you'll see some pictures of what we have for differences between the newest FEMA information and the ones we currently have adopted, or the firm maps, the flood insurance rate maps. So the one on the left is the current one on a southeastern side of Sioux Falls map, and then the one on the right with the newest data. It's an old slide, so it's slightly different now, but you can generally see how much more area and how better it generally falls into where those ponds are at, where the channeling is at, and those kind of things. And with this data, the reason why we felt it was important to incorporate it now rather than later is that this is the process FEMA's working through. In the next couple of years, they're going to adopt this, and it's going to be firm map for all of us. And so we thought we wanted to get ahead of this and try to take care of people before it's a problem later on. We've had issues in the past where we did not act ahead of time, and then property owners got brought into the floodplain after their houses were built. They could not sell their houses. Their houses devalued significantly because no one would buy them because they had this flood insurance requirement for this flooding issue that was no longer there because of the fill that was already brought in and it was moved around. We want to avoid that as best we can. So this is one of the issues where we thought with developments going on in these new areas, we can help, the builders build correctly so that when they build a house, the house that's there, the owner that's there, when the new maps come out, don't get inundated with flood issues, requirements for insurance that shouldn't be there, or higher premiums that shouldn't be there. And then B, with any new property owner looking to do work, that they're not just kind of having, hey, I had a problem, but I did this before the map was effective, so it's not actually an issue now, but that water likely went somewhere. And so we're trying to kind of play that protective game a little bit. So on the next slide, you can kind of see when we talk about that, protecting that capacity. And so there's some good pictures here. On the very right-hand side, you can see some pictures I took during our 2019 flooding on the Skunk Creek channel, very full channel at that point, again, major flooding going on. And then you can see that same picture in 2020. So you can see the difference of how these areas can fluctuate with when they're holding water in. And so our ultimate goal with another regulation we had was trying to keep that storage capacity for floodwaters to stay in that basin and not just get pushed down the road or down the river onto somebody else's property. And so the idea behind this is, yes, you can still move stuff around. We didn't go as strict as to say no fill at all, like some areas could go and have gone. But rather, we said, let's be reasonable. We want to still allow some development to go on here, but we don't want to say, oh, I have floodplain land, so I bought it for cheaper, because usually floodplain land's less expensive. Now I'm going to bring in fill, make it worth more, and push that issue off somewhere else. So this kind of gives you a rough idea of what we're looking at. Compensatory storage is the term that we're looking at most of the time for the storage capacity, which means the one that we brought in, we took a fairly, I'll say, introductive look at it and tried to make it a 1-for-1. Whereas some areas, they do a 1 for, if you put in 1 cubic feet of fill, you have to take out 1.5 cubic feet. Well, we said, let's just do 1-for-1. You bring in 1, you take out 1 in this, and we opened it up to the same general basin to make it easier and more flexible for property owners to work together to accommodate the flooding capacity that we need and we should have based on the design and the natural flow, but yet allow them to rework their land a little bit so that it can work more efficiently and economically for all properties involved. So on our next slide that we have here, we also took the opportunity to reevaluate our definition for major damages, substantial improvements and damages. So just a quick, I can go a long time on floodplain, so I won't bore you too much, but generally speaking, if something gets damaged, either a fire, a plane, a flood, whatever, the amount it takes to repair that structure back is substantial damage. FEMA minimum standard is 50% 1 year, and the damage is per event. Improvement is a year, and it's, you're adding in an addition, you're remodeling, those are improvements to your house. So we thought we'd look at that and modify that down slightly to 45 from 50. We found in analyzing our properties in the city limits of Sioux Falls that 5% drop really should be a very extremely minimal impact to properties. We tracked it over 30 years, and the amount of properties affected by that drop in 5% was less than 2%, I believe, of all the properties, of all the structures in the floodplain over a 30-year period. And we're looking to increase our standard from the typical per event for damage and 1 year for improvements to a 3-year tracking period. And we decided to try to help property owners out because they may not be expecting this. And we said, let's not start this right away. Let's sunrise this. And so 2023 is when we're going to start implementing that standard. So the first 3-year period that would be effective for the city of Sioux Falls is 2023 to 2026. So we're not going to, go back into 19 and say, well, you did a lot of improvements in 19, so now we're going to ding you for that stuff that you had no idea was going to come back. So we're trying to, get everybody on the same page, start at a level playing field, and implement those so that if there are properties that are getting damaged and that have issues with flooding, that we can then get them to improve those issues and make it so they don't experience those flooding issues. Because one of the things that we see a lot is the properties that get flooded oftentimes are the ones that can't afford to rebuild. And you're going to tell me, well, then it's hard for you to actually improve that structure. But again, what's worse, improving the structure so it doesn't flood again, or having it flood over and over and over and having to replace your furnace, your water heater again and again as they reflood, and that problem just doesn't get any better. You have to tear your carpets out all the time. What's worse? That's kind of the look we're going at. We figure the repetitive stuff is more damaging to a property owner, A, because the property value of that property is going to reflect accordingly, and B, they have this just nonstop kind of leak of cash going out. They have to fix this stuff if they can. So on our next one we're looking at, we also took the opportunity to look at, during a flood, what areas do we not want affected? And so we said, well, obviously the populations that have a hard time getting out during a flood quickly, and the populations that need to go help people, we need to help protect those ones. So we added in a standard in there restricting the critical facilities side of it, so fire stations, hospitals, nursing homes. Again, these populations where if a flood's happening, an event's happening, and they need to go out to save somebody, they can do that. Or if a flood's happening and they need to get out, can they get out fast? Is it easy? If it's not, we don't want those people to have to try to quick immobilize 100 beds from the hospital and move them out so they're out of the way of the flood. So that's kind of the idea here. It doesn't go back and say, well, you have a building in there, so you got to move it now. It's just, if you want to build a new one or you want to do a substantial improvement, this is where these come into play. There are standards in there as well to allow for, if there's no feasible alternative for the site you have and the use you have, there's some opportunity to try to improve the access and the protection around that building to a level to still keep it there as well. So on the next slide here, we kind of talk just real quickly the list of the overall changes we had. And so one of the ones that we did is Sioux Falls recently joined the Community Rating System, CRS. And so what that does for the citizens of Sioux Falls who have flood insurance or want to obtain it is it gets a discount on those insurance rates. We have a 10% discount now for any insurance premiums for flood insurance because of this program. Improvements to our standards will also, on top of helping to protect people, will also go to increased points that could lead to additional discounts in the future. The other side of it is we want to protect against future events. We know we're seeing flooding. I mean, you look around the nation, different events are happening. This year was the first year ever that the New York City National Weather Service called flash flood events. They called it twice, in a week period. First time ever in history. Tons of flash flooding going on around the nation. Significant amount of deaths already. We're not in a bubble here. We're going to be affected as well. So this going above and beyond is another way for us to protect us from those. And you've even seen it locally. Again, even in a drought year, we've seen rain totals come in here during single events where you're seeing multiple inches of rain come in. And you start adding those up together, it will make an impact, just like 2019 saw. Then the other side of it too is just to update our requirements for our flood permitting, things like that. So we also took that time to do. Again, the storage capacity was a big one for us to try to protect that area. And then limiting what uses could go in these floodplains, limiting additional work along the floodways, and those kind of things. So the next slide here is just a quick comparison of the main kind of high points of our ordinances, just so you can kind of see it on a quick slide between the city and the county, what we currently have together. And so freeboard, Minnehaha doesn't have one. We have 2 foot in Sioux Falls. Substantial damage improvements, currently county's at 50%. We're at 45. And then compensatory storage, county doesn't have it. Sioux Falls just adopted it. And then the use of firm maps, yes, we both use the firm maps, the flood insurance rate maps. And then the use of the base level engineering, BLE maps. Currently the county doesn't do that. Sioux Falls does do that. So that's a quick comparison of those big changes. The proposal, why am I here in front of you talking and asking for one way or another? We're looking to try to improve the planning and the impact of these areas that are under requests for development under that pressure. And so that joint jurisdiction boundary that we have with you is a wonderful area to kind of go, look, maybe this is an area that makes sense for us to maybe not go all the way to what we have. I'm not saying that makes sense, but maybe to get slightly there on the more important issues, is this some place that makes sense? I don't want to tell you it does or doesn't. I want to ask you if you think it does and have that discussion. And so on the next slide here, you can see that really on all the standards that I just talked to you about, I think the 2 most important things that we could really nail, kind of bring this down to are, can we use the BLE information so that we have the latest and greatest area to regulate to in the joint area only? And then can we require compensatory storage so that we don't have neighbors filling in floodplain that's not technically floodplain today but will be in 2 years? And we know it's going to be because it's already through the mapping process that's been going on for 3+ years already. So those are the kind of things we're looking at. I am hoping and looking for you guys to tell me if this is something you're interested in move forward or not. Either way, you won't hurt my feelings. We'll be okay. But I just want to make sure we had this discussion. We thought it was very important to have it at a public forum, just to kind of have this open dialogue. If you do want to move forward with something, we can propose something and bring it back. This isn't like, yeah, you're going to adopt something today. No, absolutely not. This is if you think it makes sense, we can work with county staff on putting together something that makes sense based on what we would have internally discussion-wise and what we've talked about here, and bring it forward for additional discussion. If you don't think it makes sense, I don't want to waste any more of your time, and I don't want to spend time working with county staff. They have other things to do than working on a draft of an ordinance that wouldn't be adopted anyway. So those are my quick comments for you. I appreciate your time. I'll take any questions you may have.
Albert, thank you very much. Questions for Mr. Schmidt? Commissioner Barth.
Could you further define compensatory storage?
Sure. So compensatory storage for us is on the BLE or the firm maps, depending on which one you're in. If it shows it as a 100-year flood area or 0.1% annual chance flood area, if you're going to bring fill into that area up to the base flood elevation, the BFE, you have to provide for that. So for instance, using this podium as an example, if I wanted to fill in this area between us and the base flood elevation was at the top of this podium, and I was gonna bring in fill, and that was gonna take, let's say, 100 cubic feet, well then, in that same flood basin, I need to provide 100 cubic feet somewhere else so that that water that would have gone here can go somewhere else instead of just being pushed downstream. Now, if you want to come in and fill this up like 2 feet above here, which I'd recommend if you're ever filling in floodplain, don't just go to the minimum. The only thing we're caring about on compensatory storage is up to the BFE. So I'm not going to penalize you for bringing in 200 when I only needed 100 to get to BFE, if that makes sense.
One follow-up, if I might. Could you email me your PowerPoint? I can access it through the county, but I'd like to have a copy.
Yeah, I can also email you a link to our presentation to State Council too if you want to see the full one that we did for the city as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. How often are the flood insurance rate maps updated?
I would tell you periodically. So historically for the city of Sioux Falls, they vary. We started, I think, in '79 was our first maps ever. And then it took like 15 years, 10 years before the next map update came out. Then again, another 5 to 10 years before the next one came out. And then depending on what's going on, we had a period in 2017 where we did 2 rate map approvals in the same different areas in the same year, 7 months apart. One was because we did a special study because of that one I talked about earlier, where there was approved fill and that went on, then the maps came out, and then all of a sudden these houses got brought in when they shouldn't have been in. So we did a special study to get those out and get that corrected. So we were in charge of that one, but typically, I would say it depends on the funding source. We've seen it lately where they've been spending more time with us. So in the next 2 or 3 years, we'll see one. After that point, I would envision that it's likely going to be a little while before we see new firm maps from FEMA come out, just because they're going to focus on other areas and using this technology elsewhere and spending their funds elsewhere. So
Okay.
my guess is it'll be a while after the next map.
Been 3 or 4 years since they've been updated?
2017 was the last one the state of Sioux Falls had. For the
And
big
you-
Sioux
and you're
Basin.
thinking that they're going to be updated again in 2 years?
I'd almost guarantee you to within 2 or 3 years, new maps are coming out.
And go back to, if you can, the 2 side-by-sides, only Furman with newest data.
Yeah.
That one. So the one on the left is the current flood rate map.
Correct.
And the one on the right is if you raised everything 2 feet?
The
or-
one on the right is, it's a picture in time, but it's the BLE information, so what's going to come out, so where the maps are going to be brought into. And I can also send you a link to a FEMA website where the latest map for the whole county area is also on there, so you can see kind of where these maps will likely be changing here in the future as well.
Would you route those through our planning commission office so that everybody has access to them?
Absolutely.
And
And the one,
maybe we already have them, I don't know, Scott, but I have a special interest in flood insurance. I've been doing it for 30 years.
and if I may, on the flood insurance side of things, the one comment we got a lot was, is this going to cause my flood insurance to go up, or am I going to now be required flood insurance? With the change that we're proposing to you and what we did with us starting to use BLE, that does not automatically mean that banks are going to require flood insurance until typically they're adopted by FEMA and they're a firm map. So this is kind of giving them a couple year head start on what to expect.
So what you're doing is you're going 2 feet above the BFE, is that,
For any development, any structure being built in there, yeah.
okay?
So if they come in, what I've explained to other people, if they're going to build a new building and you want to put fill in there so that your building's actually not in the floodplain, I've used the analogy of an island. So if you have an island and you're going to build on the island completely, your structure walls don't go off the island, you can build at or above BFE, you don't have that standard. If you're going to have a portion of your building go into the water a little bit, then your lowest floor has to go 2 feet above the BFE. Or if you're going to build completely in the water as a little island, then you got to have your lowest floor 2 feet above. So that's kind of the analogy I've used in the past.
Okay. Other questions? Commissioner Bender?
So this is probably going to show my ignorance. When you compared the current county standards compared to the city, and the first item is freeboard, can you explain what that is?
Yeah, so that's at 2 foot above the base
Okay, that's
elevation.
just what that is.
Yep,
Okay,
so
I thought so, but I wasn't sure.
And one of the reasons why you do freeboard, why we've pulled it in, is to try to account for changes going on. So one of the things that we've seen over the years, over all the map changes we've seen, is BFEs, base flood elevations, tend to fluctuate over years. And typically, what we've seen is an increase in BFEs as the technology gets better, as they start including more areas in the drainage basins. And so we've seen areas in Sioux Falls along the Big Sioux from 79 to 2017 increase to 3 feet from the original BFE. And so by us having a 2-foot freeboard, it allows for some of those variations over time to help those properties go from I'm just barely above to now I'm under the floodplain. We've seen that with other ones in the past where unfortunately we gave a variance for a commercial building to build at BFE. Well, what happened in 2017? New ones came out. Guess what? That floor is now too low. And so if they would have had 2-foot freeboard, they'd still be above the BFE, so their insurance rates would reflect such, but yet they would be below our 2-foot, but they'd still be better off than being below the base flood.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So as Albert said, this is kind of an advisory or informational, and it's up to the commission if they would like to just take it under advisement for right now or take action to move it forward. Comments?
I'd personally like to take it under advisement so that we have an opportunity to learn a little bit more about it and visit with planning about it and then get back to the city.
Yep, that's how I feel about it.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Send me the
Okay.
PowerPoint.
Final budget hearing for FY 2022 county budget. Mr. Kite, our auditor, good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ben Kite, Auditor's Office. So yes, I'm here to kind of, it was our last chance to review the budget for 2022. So next time we meet will be September 28th, where we'll look to adopt the budget. We provided you a copy of the means of finance and the cash applied analysis and the proposed final budget adjustments. It's same as we did when we met on September 7th. So just as a reminder, the total 2022 budget stands at a little over $104 million, using about $10 million in cash applied. The general fund cash applied amount was $6.8 million, which is right at our 8% or under our 8% target level. The budget includes taxes levied of a little over almost $60.5 million. And that number does not include any additional opt-outs for 2022. One thing I would point out or draw your attention to is the last handout, which shows the levies for 2022, which is at 3.249. That is the lowest levy that Minnehaha County has used since 2012. So that reflects a couple of things. One, the growth in the the value of the properties around the county, and I think it also reflects the strong financial management that the commission has shown over the years, as we've been very conservative in how we've spent our funds. But I think it's something that you should be proud of, being able to propose. That is our, what we would propose for the budget. Again, we will meet next week to adopt the final budget. If you had any questions on this, I would be happy to answer those.
Questions, comments? All righty. This is a hearing. Do we need to take any public comment, or is that next week? Next week, okay.
Remind me to skip next week. No, I'm just kidding.
All right, look for a motion to approve special event consume and blend beverage license number C&B 2121 for an event on October 23rd, 2021 at the Isaac Walton League. Rhonda, you want to pull your microphone?
Commissioners, Paul Brueggemann applied for Consume and Blend at the Isaac Walton League for a 32nd anniversary celebration. I reached out to the sheriff's office, the state's attorney, and the planning, and I have not received any objections to this. And they would wish to get a Consume and Blend license for October 23rd from 8 p.m. to 12 midnight.
Look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion, a second?
Second from Bender. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Authorized chair to sign the Joint Powers Financial and Maintenance Agreement between South Dakota Department of Transportation and Minnehaha County for Project MC 2118. Our highway supers, Mr. Groen, how are you?
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm doing well. Steve Garone, Highway Superintendent. This morning, I'm looking for you to approve a grant agreement with the South Dakota DOT for a safety improvement project on the curve on the south end of County Road 115, where it junctions into County Road 150 on the Iowa state border. There's a very sharp curve here. It's had several accidents over the years. This safety improvement project will eliminate the sharp curve, make it safer, and also eliminate some parking issues we've had with school buses accessing the Iowa State Park across the border. South Dakota DOT will design, bid, and let the project for an approximate cost of $115,000. We'd be responsible for 10% of that cost. So with your approval, we can get this agreement started and start the process.
Comments,
Motion to
questions?
approve. I know that curve.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Steve. Consider bid award recommendation and authorize the chair to sign an agreement with Short Elliott Hendrickson Incorporated to conduct county-wide culvert inventory and assessment. Bids were opened on September 14th. Good morning, Shannon.
Good morning, Commissioners. Shannon Schultz, Assistant Highway Superintendent. So you're familiar with House Bill 1259, which enacted monies going to the townships. That appropriation was to provide rural access infrastructure improvement and to declare an emergency. So the intent of that was to provide funding so that townships could go out and do a culvert inventory assessment so they would have money then eventually to do those repairs. But first, an inventory and assessment needs to be done. They created this thing called surprisingly, a small structure inventory handbook, which outlines the process to do that. So rather than have county staff do it or rely on townships to do that, we decided to put this out to an RFP to consultants to have that data collected in accordance with the guidance in the handbook, and we received 3 bids. We solicited on August 30th, and it was due Tuesday, September 14th, and we solicited 12 firms. I have those lists, that list of firms if you're interested to hear that. Anyway, we got 3 back. Short Elliott Henderson's, Banner, Stantec, and Infrastructure Design Group. So interestingly, there's $3 amount shown there. Why we didn't show the dollar amount for Infrastructure Design Group is, according to the proposal, expecting over 50% response from 12 consultants, we were going to pick the best 3 of those proposals and then look at what those fees were going to be. So regarding only 4 receipts, the top 3 that we actually opened up the second file, which was the cost proposal, is shown in the memo. So based on staff review, we unanimously recommend Short Elliott Hendrickson. It should be pointed out that all the 4 proposals were good, and we could have easily done this project successfully with any of those proposers. The reasons we favored SEH is that they demonstrated a good project understanding, they performed well on previous projects, and they also had a schedule that we were comfortable with. In addition, knowing that there's a fixed amount of funds given to the county to do this work, cost consciousness was obviously a part of the considerations as well. And as you can see, they're substantially less than the other proposers that we opened their fees on. So it should be pointed out that 100% of the cost of this effort will be done by or using the funds provided through that House bill. There'll be no cost to the county. And with your recommendation, or with your approval, we recommend that SEH be selected to perform this work.
Motion to approve.
Second with a question.
Go ahead.
So did our interns this summer just do county highways?
Correct.
And did they get $50,000?
No, they did not.
Oh, okay, just checking.
They were they were paid $14.50 an hour.
So this is county and township?
Township roads only.
Only.
So basically gravel roads in the county
Okay.
that are owned and operated by the townships.
And they're inventorying them or also grading them?
They're gonna inventory culverts that are larger than 60 inches in diameter in terms of square feet opening, 60 inches in diameter. Meets that threshold of 16 square feet or larger. And then if they're larger than 20 feet long in terms of what the waterway would see, so roadway length along center line, if that's more than 20 feet, those structures are already on our county inventory system, we own, operate, and manage those as part of our normal bridge. All bridges in the county that are greater than 20 feet are basically Minnehaha County Highway Department's to own, operate, and manage. So they're part of our bridge inventory. So that's why this category is called small structures or large culverts. So if you're a township and you have a 48-inch diameter culvert, that's not going to be part of this inventory and assessment. It might be identified, but it will not be eligible to receive funding under this program.
So is this something that's going to be shared with the townships, and how will they benefit from us having this information?
The information is collected, given to the state, and then the state does an overall assessment. They have a fixed amount of funds, and when all the townships turn in all their culverts and small structures that are qualified for this program, they're just going to do basically a prorated number of culverts, number of dollars, you know, Minnehaha County versus the rest of the state, prorated. That will free up funding for them to go out and replace culverts, design, construct those culverts. Some of them may need to be structurally rated for, you know, structural strength. So these funds will also pay for that structural analysis to see. So when I say small structure, that could be a small bridge. You know, there's these bridges out there, we call them WPA structures, Works Projects Administration. They were put in the 30s and the 40s. They're those small structures that are less than 20 feet in length, and they've been out there a while, and amazingly, they've held up great, but you know, there is an end of useful life of all those things, and there's going to be a handful of those that need to be assessed and probably replaced, or at least assessed for a load reduction.
So they don't build them like Grandpa
So really,
used to.
Dean, it's a method to, townships don't have the money to do this now.
Yep. And from what I'm hearing you say is if counties choose not to get involved in the process, I mean, it's just, the pie is so big, and the fewer that participate, the greater the share is. Is that a fair assumption?
That is correct. So,
Okay.
exactly right. So of the, I don't even know how many townships are in the whole state, but of the 66 counties, you know, if 44 only submit, then, you know, our share of that pie will be bigger. So it is to the counties as well as the townships' benefit to have this assessment done. I would add one more thing. To be eligible to receive construction funding, so the assessment is free basically to the townships and us, and they're going to do the whole assessment. But to be eligible to receive funding for design and construction, they have to do an assessment of their township people, and that is laid out in that House bill, or they can do an opt-out, which is also laid out in that House Bill 1259.
All righty. Thank you, Shannon. I think we have a motion and a second, correct? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks again.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Authorize the chair to sign an amendment, authorize the chair to sign amendment number 1 to the 2021 Air Guard Security Protection Agreement. Mr. Winya.
Good morning, Commissioners. Keith Winya, the Air Guard Division Supervisor. Before us, we have an amendment to the FY 2021 contract with the Air National Guard. This amendment increases the funding to $215,900, totaling the final dollar amount on that agreement to $1,147,700. So I'm requesting that the chairman sign that document so we can get fully funded for the rest of the year.
Do you expect us to say no? I make a
No.
motion to approve.
Second.
You got a second from Commissioner Heiberger? All right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you,
Right,
sir.
Thank you.
Consider a motion to approve a recommendation of the Planning Department to indicate that no further action is needed on a nuisance property legally described as Tract 1, Gaddis Edition, Section 18, et cetera, Wayne Township. Mr. Oakman. Good morning, Kevin.
Good morning. I'm Kevin Hookman from the County Planning Department. This item was brought before you on July 27th as a public nuisance action where there was work done, but there's a few items that remain on the property. I'm pleased to say that the planning staff is satisfied with the work that has been done, and I'll show some photos of the project. And we have this review of it because it was brought before you as a public nuisance item, and we wanted to kind of close it out with you and show the progress done. Just a reminder, the property is located to the west of Sioux Falls, near West Acres Development. Some aerial photos of the property. It has 2 dwellings on the property, one along the kind of the panhandle of the property, and then one within the farmstead area. Another photo of the farmstead area. So some of the photos of the past of the property, the reason for the complaint, vehicles, some kind of junk behind the house, other kind of equipment throughout the property, tires. And this is more updated. This was used for the July meeting to bring that forward, that the trailers did not have license plates on them at that time. But you can also see some of the improvements. And then again, back to the trailers. But in that July, you'll see that many of the items have been picked up along the tree line there. And then this is the most recent photos that the trailers do have proper license plates on them. And there's the hot tub that was on the trailer. It looks like it's in good order. The mattress has been removed, and then that little pickup has been removed from this location here too. So I'll just bring it back to this one here. Since, like I said, this was brought to you before, the property owner was notified of this meeting. I don't see her here, but it was kind of a late notice, so she wasn't sure if she could get the work off. And also the neighboring property owner was notified of the meeting too, and I don't know if she's here or not. But yeah, staff does recommend that no further action is needed, and so we can close out the file. Is there any questions?
Commissioner Barth.
Kevin, even before it came to the commission for action, did we write letters to the neighbors that were apparently possibly in violation? Did we write them letters and then have no action?
To the
neighbors that had the junk.
So we did write letters to this property owner, is what you're asking?
Yeah.
And yeah, we worked with them throughout. As you can see, the first photos were in December, and it's hard to do code enforcement in December. Things get frozen to the ground. And then we worked with them through the summer, and there was kind of slow progress, but it reached a point that it was just, we need to move forward with this, and brought it here.
And was this a property that the property owner was not the same as the property occupier, and that the owner got the note and didn't tell the person that was actually living there?
That could be the case, as there are 2 houses on the property, and the little house in the panhandle portion of the property borders the neighbor much closer, and that's where these trailers are located. And that was the last thing that needed to be removed off the property, or licensed and corrected. So that could have been part of the issue.
They had talked about taking down some of the farm structures. Was that done, and preparing the property for sale?
That would have been for so on the 27th, we had 2 nuisance cases brought to us.
Yep.
And that would have been the other nuisance case. And if you recall, that was given 90 days instead of, this one was given to the beginning of September. The other one was given 90 days, which I believe comes up to the middle of October.
The complaint was they were moving stuff from this property to that property.
Yeah, so that property was helping this property owner clean out some of the stuff because he had the salvage business, and I guess I haven't been on that property since the case was brought, but from the road, it looks much the same from when I visited the property here earlier September. So
He has 60 more days to clean that up? Is that what you're saying?
probably not even that, maybe 30.
Okay. So you'll be bringing that back to us?
Yep.
Okay.
Motion to approve that there's no further action on this planning nuisance issue.
I'll second that, and I have a comment too.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I just hope they don't move it back to the other one after this is done, so.
Mr. Chairman, so after our last meeting on this, I got a call from a citizen who had sold one of those folks his 1961 Chevrolet just as he joined the Army. And when he came back from the Army, he found out that the title had never been transferred. So he went there and said, I'd like to have my 1961 Chevrolet back. And the guy took him out back and showed him a door from an automobile and says, that's all that's left. Anyway, he wanted me to resolve this issue, and I told him I wasn't going to be able to.
Commissioner Karski.
Commissioner.
Just a question unrelated to the one that we just completed. So if we've had a nuisance issue in the past and then it has been resolved, do we ever drive by those properties to see if they have maintained? I'm thinking about a specific property that their front yard was full of air conditioners and I don't know all what, quite some time ago, which was resolved. I recently drove past that, just driving, and noticed that there possibly is a accumulation again in that property. I just don't know if we ever go back when we've had a problem in the past, so.
To answer your question, typically it's the neighbors let us know. And to your question about the air conditioner property, we are aware of that, and they
Okay.
have the final letter to clean up. I believe it's September 30th.
Okay.
So that one will likely be
Be coming to
coming
us
to
too.
you in
Okay.
October as well.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman. Cindy, I tell you what, I drive around quite a bit, and I see those same properties accumulating more and more. That one in Corson, for example, all kinds of stuff going on there. And some of the other ones, there's the guy with the 40-foot house on Highway 137. And there's another one that they were parking in the highway right-of-way. They're back in the right-of-way. And, you know, these things are very difficult, especially when I think there's an aspect of mental illness involved. And I think that neighbors also get into a tizzy about things. And it happens to, I was just reading about billionaires in California that were fighting about the noise and stuff, and about the unsightly statue in their front yard. And I mean, my goodness, neighbors, get along with each other. We can't expect perfection from our planning and zoning department to go out and pick up every rusty piece of metal and make it a golf course. If you want to live on a golf course, buy one and move there.
And we're not alleging anybody has any mental illness here.
Except for me. But
Yes, Scott.
Scott Anderson, Planning Department. To maybe drill down a little bit more on Commissioner Heiberger's question, I was the person, I drove by and noticed the air conditioner problem, and I directed staff to send out a letter because it has gotten bad. I've also, the cars parking in the right-of-way west of the Del Rapids exit, that's also, I mean, we've dealt with that. I drove by that, noticed it's a problem again, and we're working on that. So to answer your question, yes, I do drive by and sort of reevaluate where they are. And Jeff is correct, a lot of these people are repeat customers.
Yeah.
And it's always an ongoing issue we get them cleaned up and almost immediately, not all of them, but some of them just go right back to, hey, look how much room I have on my property now. So anyway, we are working on those, and I do periodically drive by and look at some of our older problems.
Great. Good
Thanks.
to know. Good to know.
Thank you, everybody. Moving on to authorized chair to sign amendment number 1 to the May 1, 2020 Accessible Housing Advisory Board Joint Powers Agreement between Minnehaha County and the City of Sioux Falls. Amos Abu and Carrie Benz. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Amos Abu. I'm the Housing Clinic Coordinator for City of Sioux Falls / Minnehaha County. I'm here on behalf of the Accessible Housing Advisory Board to present a memo for a revision or modification to the Joint Powers Agreement that was put together following the dissolution of the previous Homeless Advisory Board that eventually culminated in the creation of the Accessible Housing Advisory Board. There had been some changes from early this year. There was changes made from the city's housing division. There was a realignment of divisions. Now the housing division has been changed, kind of put together with the neighborhood revitalization department. So based on that, there were some changes that needed to be made because the housing manager was really in charge of making decisions when it came to implementation of the Accessible Housing Advisory Board at the city level. But now the board had recommended that some changes be made and the housing manager be replaced by the director for planning and services as well. That's one of the modifications that was being sought. The second one has to do with redefining the operational area and jurisdiction of the boards. One of the previous joint powers agreement referred to the jurisdiction or the area as instead of saying, for example, Minnehaha County and Lincoln County, it says Greater Sioux Falls area. So those are the two areas that the board is seeking that some modifications be made.
Commissioner Bender.
Thank you for being here this morning. And I'm the liaison to that committee, so I sit on that committee, and we have had a couple of times now where we've tried to fine-tune this joint powers agreement. And, you know, one of the second issue that Amos alluded to was the issue of where the at-large members can live to serve on this commission. And
Right.
One of the things that we do through this organization is we jointly fund with the city of Sioux Falls a housing navigator position. And so we have played around with where the folks that are at-large must live in order to adequately represent the two government bodies that fund that position. And what we have landed on this time is saying that they must live either within the boundaries of the city of Sioux Falls or within Minnehaha County. And I think that that's fair given the funding sources, and it's a little bit clearer to make sure that the language previously said Minnehaha County, and obviously there's parts of the city of Sioux Falls that don't lie within the county. And so we just are clarifying that, along with a couple of the organizational changes at the city of Sioux Falls. Those are the two main changes here. I'm fully supportive. The board is fully supportive of these changes.
All righty. Look for a motion, unless there's more questions.
I'd make a motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Liaison reports. Commissioners, anybody liaisoning? Commissioner Iber.
Just to report back that Commissioner Karski and I both attended the SDACC convention along with several other department heads and our administrative officer this past week. Commissioner Karski was elected as the vice president, and so we will hope that he is elected as the president next year of SDACC, and he has a seat on the board. We had a lot of really good breakout sessions. I will admit that I was not excited about going. It was a very good conference. I had a great time, made very good connections with other commissioners, and I think our breakout sessions were very good. A couple of them, particularly two of them, were on marijuana, and our office has a PowerPoint on human resources that was very, very helpful. And so if you're interested in it, she can share it with you. I'm pretty sure she's already talked to Carrie about some of the things in that PowerPoint. The entire meeting was very well received. We had good turnout, and I was happy to have attended.
Just to add on to that, I think that our board and executive chairs at the South Dakota Association of County Commissioners are going to be very well served by the individuals that we have there. One of the things I brought back was a head cold from County Commissioner Jim Schmidt in Lincoln County. So if you're wondering where I'm getting this deep voice, that's where it's from. And I have been tested for COVID and negative. Thank you. Commissioner Bender.
First, congratulations on your election, and
Thank you.
we appreciate all the work that you and Commissioner Heiberger have done with that organization. It's made tremendous steps forward.
Yep,
So,
Cindy just finished as past president.
As far as liaisons, a couple of things. I just mentioned my role on the Accessible Housing Board. We had a meeting last week and had a great presentation from the Augustana Research Group about a study that they did about housing and housing gaps in Minnehaha County and Greater Sioux Falls. And that was something that I'm looking to get a copy of, and I'll make it available to you. It's very lengthy. I might only make available to you the summary pages, which were also very good, and then if you want the rest of it, you can. You know, it was a lot of good information, a lot of challenges, and no particularly easy answers, but we continue to work at that. And the remake of that board has really revitalized that group and given us access to input on how different funds are allocated. So the other thing is that I'm also the liaison to IT and to the state's attorney's office, and we continue to meet to look at the software options, and Barry Dunn has been helpful in navigating that. We saw the current system last week. We're going to see the proposed system next week, and we're trying to stay on our timeline to report back to the commission. Barry Dunn will prepare a report, and that will be presented to the entire commission. So that project seems to be on track.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Barth?
We had a meeting of the East Dakota Water Development District, and it's amazing how much testing is going on water quality, both at the state and in the East Dakota Water District. But there's also changes coming with the districts that board members represent, and Minnehaha County has the most board members, in as much as we also pay the most in tax to the East Dakota Water Development District. So we're waiting to see how that plays out.
Commissioner Kursky.
Yes.
Just kind of add on to that, I did send some NACO information to our planning department a couple weeks ago about waters of the U.S. That had actually gone away about 5 or 6 years ago. This commission was very supportive of having waters of the U.S. go away as to how it affected some of our properties, not ours specifically, but our Minnehaha County citizens' properties. That seems to be coming back up online again, so NACO is again fighting waters of the U.S. And so planning is looking into that and was going to at least look through it and see what we needed to do concerning that. It's another water issue, so.
All righty. I had the Sioux Metro Growth Alliance, as you probably remember. It used to be called the Minnehaha County and Lincoln County Economic Development, 2 separate associations, merged into one board now, and they're really right now looking to expand their footprint and area of impact all the way out to even Salem and other communities that are interested with the change to become involved in the economic development of this more broader area, I guess. So I think they're doing a great job, and Jesse Fonkert is leading that group very well, so we'll see more good things coming from that. We had the Highway Department groundbreaking. Everybody knows that, but quite a few more people found out where the Highway Department and the Minnehaha County Cemetery is. So that was a good event. I think there are at least 50 or more that were at that. So it was, thank you, Dave, for coming.
I'm sorry, can't hear you.
Highway Department groundbreaking? Yeah. We had at least 50 people at that, so it was a good event. So sorry about that. I'll talk closer. Moving on to new business. Any new business?
Mr. Chairman, I'll let the auditor speak.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind folks that on Saturday, we will have our auction of surplus property here. We'll hold it here in this room right now. We have 5 properties that will be on that sale. We've been fortunate to have 3 of the 3 other properties pay their past due taxes in full. Be ideal if we had 5 more properties paid in full by Saturday, but if not, we will have an auction here on Saturday at 10 o'clock.
Thank you, Ben.
Mr. Chair, I noticed in the Minnehaha Messenger that Grace Klum in Hartford will turn 107 this Thursday. I'm bringing it up under new business. I'm not sure that's correct or not. But
Thank you, Willard Scott. So, 107 is quite the milestone. Congratulations and happy birthday to Grace. Other new business? Old business?
Mr. Chair, being, as we had that presentation from the city, I just wanted to mention that Renner Sanitary District is still trying to recover from the floods that they had, where they take care of the area north of the interstate along Highway 115 all the way up to north of Renner. And they pump their sanitary product down to Sioux Falls where it's treated. But all their pumping stations and stuff were flooded and filled with sand during the floods 2 years ago. Additionally, the amount of material that was sent down to Sioux Falls was incredibly larger than normal. And so they paid by the volume of stuff that they pumped down there. And so they were hurting. And they have some ideas on trying to move forward from here to include possibly moving the Renner Fire Station to the east side of Highway 115, et cetera. And it might be the kind of thing that Roger Stibbe, their manager, could come and talk to us about. And as regards to building up your properties or whatever, I lived in the Quad Cities, Davenport, Rock Island, Bettendorf, Moline. And so Rock Island would build their flood wall on the Mississippi up 3 feet. Then Davenport would build their flood wall up 8 feet. And so they had this ongoing war, much like the missile race that we had when President Eisenhower was here. And what eventually happened is, with that bottleneck, the land north of the Quad Cities was flooded. And so I know that there's a lot of talk north of Sioux Falls about the Highway 90 being a dam that holds the water up there, making them wetter. There's talk about the city no longer pumping from water wells at the airport because of that contaminant from fire extinguisher foam, and that since they're no longer pumping out that water, that the basements north of Highway 90 are wetter. Anyway, there's lots of issues with hydrology and water, and we certainly have to work hard to stay on top of them.
Thank you, Commissioner. All righty. We're going to go to recess, so look for a motion to recess.
So moved. Aye.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We are at recess, and we'll give it about 8 minutes, 10:15.